A lot of what we cover on this show is long-term foundational support. Other things are like, take it right now and you'll feel it right now. In natural medicine, a lot of times it's more on the long-term side than the short-term side. But as you know, if you've tried certain products, things like Back on Track or even our Ultimate Vitality Multi, a lot of people feel it the first time they take it. Well, lion's mane is so cool because it's both. It's really, really both. They've got excellent studies on quick, hey, I'm noticing a difference after 60 minutes. And there are excellent studies long-term all the way out to 16 weeks showing increased improvement in cognitive scores. Now, some of the side benefits I briefly mentioned earlier, gut and digestive support. That's what the Chinese used it for hundreds of years ago. And most people don't ever think of lion's mane for that, but you should always think of medicinal mushrooms in that way because they are prebiotic by nature. That fiber in the mushroom is prebiotic. It feeds the good guys in the gut. And so you get that benefit. And then when you think about lion's mane, think about this, the gut-brain connection. If you're taking a mushroom that supports the brain and mental health and the nervous system, neuron development and all of that, and you're also taking in that same dose a mushroom that supports the gut microbiome, which supports the production of neurotransmitters and hormones and supports the strengthening of the gut microbiome itself, then you have got a really great win-win situation for the gut-brain connection, for the gut health, the brain health, the mental health, all of that stuff. Welcome to Vitality Radio, the podcast that helps you make sense of natural supplements and thrive without pharma drugs. I'm Jared St. Clair. I grew up in a health food store and spent over 40 years now figuring out what works and what doesn't, so that you can make confident, informed decisions about nutrition, supplements, and your health. Hello and welcome back to Vitality Radio. My name is Jared St. Clair. This is the next installment of our Magnificent Mushrooms series, and I have been looking forward to this one because, well, if you've listened to this show for any length of time, you already know that this is the mushroom I get asked about more than any other. It's the one people bring up when they call the store, when they message us online, when they corner me at events, and it's usually some version of the same question. Something like, my brain just doesn't feel as sharp as it used to, or I'm in my 40s, I'm forgetting words mid-sentence, can't remember where my keys are, it's starting to freak me out a little bit. Or I've got a family history of cognitive decline, like I do in my family, and I want to do something about it now, proactively, rather than waiting. I hear that constantly from my audience and this audience on this podcast specifically because, well, I think it's one of the quote unquote scariest things when it comes to health is losing your cognitive ability, right? And you don't want to wait for a diagnosis to start paying attention to your brain. You want to be doing the work now in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond before things start to potentially go south in that area. So today we're going to talk about lion's mane. It's also known as the smart mushroom or the brain mushroom. This is the mushroom most closely associated with nerve health, memory, focus, and mood. And unlike a lot of things in the natural health world, there is a genuinely interesting and growing body of research behind it. We're going to cover where this mushroom comes from, what it's actually doing in the body, what the human research shows and doesn't show, and how to tell if you've got a good product from a mediocre one, which of course is one of the things I always try to help you with on Vitality Radio. Let's get into it. So the mushroom itself, what is it? Visually, it's one of the strangest and I think coolest looking mushrooms out there. Instead of a cap and a stem like your typical mushroom you might see on, Super Mario Brothers or whatever, lion's mane grows as this like cascading white mass of long dangly spines, and it kind of looks like a lion's mane. Shaggy white one, actually. And honestly, it's got a bit more of like a pom-pom made of icicles kind of a look to it. If you haven't seen it, you should look it up. It's pretty cool. It grows on hardwood trees, oak and beech especially, and you'll find it across North America, Europe, and Asia. So it's actually got a history of use in a wide range of cultures for hundreds, if not thousands of years. It's what's called a saprophytic fungus, meaning it feeds on dead or decaying wood rather than living tissue. In Chinese herbal tradition, it's called hao tao gu, which translates to something like monkey head mushroom. I think I prefer lion's mane sounds better. And in Japan, it goes by Yamabushitake, which references the mountain-dwelling Buddhist ascetics who traditionally wore a very similar-looking shaggy garment, interestingly enough. So like I say, it's got a kind of long and interesting history. Now, here's what makes this mushroom scientifically interesting, though. Most of what we talk about in this series comes down to beta-glucan. That's the polysaccharides that are found in pretty much all medicinal mushrooms. These are immune modulating fiber compounds that show up across the kingdom. Lion's mane has those too, and they matter, but lion's mane also produces two other families of compounds that are fairly unique to this particular fungus. And they're the reason this mushroom has its own dedicated research niche. Those are hericenones, and which are concentrate mostly in the fruiting body, the part that looks like the white icicle mass or the lion's mane itself, and erinacines, which concentrate mostly in the mycelium, which is what's found underground. It's kind of known as the root system of the mushroom, even though they aren't technically roots like from a tree or a plant. Both of those compound families have been studied for their ability to cross the blood-brain barrier and stimulate something called nerve growth factor, or NGF. NGF is a protein your body already produces naturally, and its job is to support the growth, maintenance, and survival of neurons. Think of it as a signal that tells your nervous system, keep building, keep maintaining, keep this circuitry alive and functioning. That single mechanism, the ability of a food-based compound to potentially support your body's own NGF production, is what put lion's mane on the map scientifically. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in the future of this show. The traditional record for lion's mane is interesting, especially in Chinese medicine, where it was traditionally categorized as a tonic for the digestive system, interestingly enough, what practitioners would describe as supporting spleen and stomach qi. It was used for general stomach discomfort and sluggish digestion long before anyone was talking about nerve growth factor from it. It was also notably a delicacy. This is one of the only mushrooms in the entire series that we're producing on mushrooms that was a prize at the dinner table as it was in the medicine cabinet. It shows up historically in Chinese imperial cuisine and is commonly described in culinary and herbal writings as having a texture and flavor reminiscent of a very mild crab or lobster, which is also exactly how I would describe it. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute as well. You'll also see it repeated often in modern write-ups that Buddhist monks use lion's mane specifically to support meditation, focus, and mental clarity, sometimes referred to as the monk's brain food. I want to flag that a little bit because we see the claim constantly in the supplement world, brain food, nootropics, all that kind of stuff. And most of the things that we talk about with nootropics are kind of on what I would consider to be more of the cutting edge of science. That's not bad. I'm thrilled that we're discovering some of these newer things, but we have this ancient history, this kind of folklore of lion's mane being used before probably just about anything in the kind of quote unquote brain food category. And so I love lion's mane for its history of use. If you listen to this show on a regular basis, I'm all about the history and the anecdotal evidence, not just the scientific evidence, although I like to weigh out both. Now, let's talk about this culinary and medicinal thing just really quick. The modern research era for this mushroom really begins in the early 1990s when a Japanese chemist isolated the hericinone compound from the fruiting body and identified their concentration and their connection to nerve growth factor synthesis. A few years later, erinacines were identified in the mycelium with a similar and, in some lab research, even more potent NGF stimulating effect. That discovery is what took lion's mane out of the category of just another traditional digestive tonic and put it into the neuroscience research world. Now, from a culinary standpoint versus medicinal standpoint, I mentioned the crab and lobster thing, and I want to expand on that for just a minute because this is genuinely one of the only medicinal mushrooms where the culinary and medicinal benefits are both often used on a regular basis. Frankly, I'll just tell you, I'm not a big fan of mushrooms in culinary. They're just not my thing. A lot of people love them on their, pizza or their salads or whatever else. I don't love mushrooms that much. I really like lion's mane. It is a very unique animal, for lack of a better term. Very, very interesting. You can actually find it in farmers markets, at specialty grocery stores, Asian markets for sure. Often people will saute it in butter and actually eat it like a meat substitute, interestingly enough, or along with their meat. It also has almost zero bitterness, unlike most medicinal fungi that has a little bit more of a punch to it. So, interesting thing to consider that you can actually eat this one and probably enjoy it quite a lot, where most medicinal mushrooms don't have the mild, light taste that a typical culinary mushroom does. Lion's mane very much is kind of in that side from a flavor standpoint. Now, how do I personally use it? Because I don't use every one of these mushrooms that we're talking about in this series. I don't use every one of the products I talk about on this show. I'd be using everything if that was the case. I try to, run the gamut on this stuff. But I do use lion's mane, and I've used lion's mane for a long, long time. It's one of the easiest ones to stick with, and mostly over my years using it, I've used the powder. We have powder in a variety of different brands. I really like the powders. There are a few of them from Host Defense. There's just the straight mushroom powder, which is great. We have lion's mane mushroom powder and a couple other brands as well. But then we also have the brain and body mushroom powder, if you like something that actually has flavor to it. It has some anti-inflammatory benefits as well and some probiotic benefits. There's a microbiome one as well. So there's a lot of options in the powder. But if you're just looking to throw something in your smoothie or your protein shake, your rebuild, when you're mixing that up in the morning and you don't want it to mess up the flavor, a scoop of lion's mane just disappears in protein powder. It disappears in soups. It disappears in pasta sauce. It's really easy to use that way, and it's very economical that way versus in a capsule form. And I still do that. I often will use lion's mane. I dump it in my smoothie on a pretty regular basis. But I also have fallen in love with a product that I co-developed with a friend of mine, Jason from Feral Fungi. This product I've got right here called Mind Fuel. Now, Mind Fuel this was for me. I developed this product for me. It was incredibly selfish. I really wanted something that I could open up, squeeze the little dropper and drop it straight into my mouth like I'm doing right now. Now, normally I'll hold on to that in my mouth for about 30 seconds, but I'm filming a show right now. But it's simple as that. Now, does it taste mild and light? No, it doesn't. This is a alcohol extract for one thing, so you have that little bit of bite there. But it also is a combination of lion's mane plus cordyceps, a frankly less tasty mushroom, suma, gotukola, and shilajit. So it's a really complex formula of adaptogenic herbs, mineral-rich shilajit, plus these two mushrooms in a concentrated extract that is made in the spagyric tradition, which means that they concentrate all of these herbs down to the liquid extract. They then burn the mass that's left over, the fibrous mass that's left over, and they extract the mineral salts from that mass. So you're getting the whole nutritional profile without the fiber, basically, and it hits pretty quickly. I do it. I did it just now, to demonstrate, but I also do it before most of my shows. Sometimes this is going to make you laugh. I forget. It's right here on my desk, but I sometimes have my desk full of a lot of other things. But most shows, to try and keep myself a little bit sharper, when I sit down to start writing the show, I will shoot a dropper full, sometimes two, depending on how sharp I'm feeling at the moment, of the Mind Fuel. And I love that. I only use Mind Fuel when I really need to kind of sit in and focus. It's probably 2 or 3 times a week. That's how I do it. A lot of people do it daily. And I do the lion's mane powder on more of a regular basis. Now, what is actually in each of the different forms of mushroom? Like we're talking about the extract, we're talking about the powder, we're talking about the capsules. Well, it's actually pretty simple. There are what are called fruiting body capsules, which is in lion's mane is that the main. And then there's the mycelium capsules, like what Host Defense makes. And that's the under the surface stuff, the mycelium matrix. And there's debate. And I'm not on one side of that debate. I like them both. I think they're both very, very beneficial and useful. And I've tried both and I've had success with both. So you kind of have to test them out and see what you think. I know a lot of people listening like me to just say, hey, this is the best. But I'm really not in a place where I feel like this is the best. I do personally like this the best, the Mind Fuel liquid extract, because of the other stuff that's in there and the way that it hits. I don't love the flavor of it the best. And I love the powder, the brain and body from Host Defense, I absolutely love. I think it's a really, really cool formula, but it does have turmeric in it and ginger. It's more of like a golden milk flavor, which some people love, some people don't. So you have to kind of decide. I actually put that with coconut milk sometimes or regular dairy milk. And I've also done it with water, and it's good in any of those ways. And sometimes I'll add a little bit of monk fruit extract to it. But the easiest way is just pure powder, just dumped into a smoothie or a protein shake, and any of those work. You can get extracts like the liquid. You can get just pure powder. You can get extracts and concentrates in capsules. We have one that's a 4X and an 8X extract. So these are very concentrated capsules where you just take one per day from Pure Essence Labs. So lots of options. I'm not going to steer you a specific way. Take lion's mane if you're worried about your brain and you're worried about BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor, that NGF that we talked about, nerve growth factor. It's definitely worth a shot. It's not a super expensive supplement. It has a lot of prebiotic benefits because all mushrooms do. It has a lot of immune support benefits, and then it has that bonus brain health benefit as well. And then you just experiment and see which one you like the most. So I think I've gone through most of what I wanted to share with you, but I also want to say that you've heard me say this before. If you're a regular listener, I'm not a big fan of gummies in this industry, but there is a lion's mane gummy that I really like. It's made by Host Defense. It's a concentrated lion's mane, and it tastes pretty dang good. They have some combination gummies too. You'll have to check them out. They even have Grateful Dead artwork on them if you're into that kind of thing. But just the straight lion's mane mushroom gummies are one that you may want to try if you like the idea of a gummy, and instead of, a liquid or a powder or whatever, they do actually taste quite good. I like them quite a bit. My favorite, again, is the Mind Fuel because it's its own brain health stack, but not everybody loves the liquid extract, so you just kind of have to fiddle around with it. Now, what does the research actually show that it really does in cognitive function? Because that's really where the rubber hits the road. We have all this traditional use. We know that it does have an impact on brain-derived neurotrophic factor. We know that it has nerve growth factor benefits, all that kind of stuff. But let's talk about the human research. The most cited human trial goes back to a study out of Japan in 2008. Researchers gave adults between 50 and 80 years old, all of whom had been assessed with mild age-related cognitive decline, either lion's mane or a placebo. The lion's mane group took the equivalent of about 3 grams per day, which is another reason why you probably want a concentrated extract either in a capsule or a liquid like this, the Mind Fuel, or the powder, because 3 grams is a lot. That's going to be like 6 capsules worth. So a lot of people don't like just the regular capsules for that reason. Now, there is good evidence that 1,500 milligrams is a pretty effective dose too. But the best study so far that we have is at that 3 gram dose. I do believe you can get similar results at a much lower milligram dose in an extract. I certainly have experienced it with Mind Fuel. But let's talk about this placebo-controlled study. 3 grams a day split across 3 doses for 16 weeks. Using a standard cognitive function scale, the group taking lion's mane showed meaningfully improved scores at the 8, 12, and 16-week marks compared to the placebo group. Now, the detail that I think is actually the most useful from this study is when they stopped taking it and followed up 4 weeks later, those improved scores had drifted back down. That tells us that this is likely supportive, ongoing relationship, not a one-time fix. If you like lion's mane, it's working for you. You just keep taking lion's mane and you enjoy all of the wonderful benefits of it. There was a follow-up study out of Japan in 2019 using a lower daily amount, 2.4 grams instead of 3 grams over 12 weeks, and again found measurable improvements in cognitive function scores in the group taking the lion's mane. So they found that it's even effective at a little bit lower dose. And a more recent study, 2023 in the UK, on healthy adults in their 20s and 30s, not older or cognitively impaired population, using 1.8 grams per day. That's 1,800 milligrams. What they found was interesting in 2 fronts. First, just 60 minutes after a single dose, participants performed noticeably faster on a standard attention and processing speed test compared to the placebo. 60 minutes. That's a genuinely fast onset for something in the botanical and fungi world, most of which we oftentimes talk about in weeks, not days or hours. Second, after 28 days of daily use, there was a trend towards reduced subjective stress, though that particular finding didn't quite reach the statistical significant bar. So it was a trend that way, maybe over a longer time, it may have gotten there. And then there was also a study in Italy in 2019 that looked at adults dealing with overweight or obesity alongside diagnosed mood concerns, not cognitive, but mood concerns. After 8 weeks of daily lion's mane, participants showed improvement in depression, anxiety, and sleep disturbance scores. So it is a tonic for the nervous system, period. Really interesting. Now, you've heard me throw the term BDNF around. Let's talk about BDNF in some detail here, because I think it's something you really need to understand. The original study we talked about did measure something called pro-BDNF. BDNF is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. If NGF is the signal that tells your nervous system to maintain and repair what's already there, BDNF is more about building new connections, what's often called neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to adapt, learn, and rewire itself in response to experience. It's the same molecule people are talking about when they say hard workout is good for your brain, since exercise is one of the most well-documented ways to raise it. Now, I want to be precise here because it does matter. What the Italian researchers actually measured was pro-BDNF, which is the precursor your body converts into active BDNF, not BDNF itself. That is a meaningful distinction because the body does have to still make that conversion. But BDNF and NGF are not the same molecule. They're part of the same neurotrophic family, both involved in keeping your nervous system adaptable instead of static. So between the cognitive research and the mood research, you're looking at a mushroom that shows up across multiple independent signals and many different trials showing that it supports the nervous system and neurotrophic factor in a significant way. And while we know that it increases pro-BDNF and we don't necessarily know that it increases BDNF, I can tell you that based on the results of these studies, BDNF is almost definitely rising. And that is a big deal, especially if you feel kind of stuck in your life, mentally, emotionally. We've got to keep that plasticity going. It's a big part of mindset work. It's a big part of meditation. I love lion's mane for all of these reasons. Now, I want to come back to the NGF just one more time because I want to make sure that everything is fully covered here and you understand this clearly. Laboratory and animal research going back to that early 1990s discovery and continuing steadily ever since has shown that both hericenones and erinacines can stimulate the body's own synthesis of nerve growth factor. NGF supports the health, maintenance, and connectivity of neurons throughout the entire nervous system. That's the proposed mechanism behind essentially everything that we've just discussed today. Memory, attention, mood, all of those things. It's not that lion's mane is forcing a specific outcome. It is that it may be supporting what the body naturally wants to do anyway and helping it do more of it in supporting brain health and nerve health itself. So here's why I think this all matters practically, not just academically. A lot of what we cover on this show is long-term foundational support. Other things are like, take it right now and you'll feel it right now. In natural medicine, a lot of times it's more on the long-term side than the short-term side. But as you know, if you've tried certain products, things like Back on Track or even our Ultimate Vitality Multi, a lot of people feel it the first time they take it. Well, lion's mane is so cool because it's both. It's really, really both. They've got excellent studies on quick, hey, I'm noticing a difference after 60 minutes. And there are excellent studies long-term all the way out to 16 weeks showing increased improvement in cognitive scores. Now, some of the side benefits I briefly mentioned earlier, gut and digestive support. That's what the Chinese used it for hundreds of years ago. And most people don't ever think of lion's mane for that, but you should always think of medicinal mushrooms in that way because they are prebiotic by nature. That fiber in the mushroom is prebiotic. It feeds the good guys in the gut. And so you get that benefit. And then when you think about lion's mane, think about this, the gut-brain connection. If you're taking a mushroom that supports the brain and mental health and the nervous system, neuron development and all of that. And you're also taking in that same dose a mushroom that supports the gut microbiome, which supports the production of neurotransmitters and hormones and supports the strengthening of the gut microbiome itself. Then you have got a really great win-win situation for the gut-brain connection, for the gut health, the brain health, the mental health, all of that stuff. Now, lion's mane is not a stimulant. It's not sedating, which means it's flexible on timing. You can take it at night. You can take it in the morning. You can take it in the middle of the afternoon. And remember, it actually helped to improve sleep scores, but I've never had anybody tell me that lion's mane made them sleepy. In terms of duration, I always recommend you give it a minimum of 30 days before you say this is working or it's not. But again, a lot of people notice a difference significantly faster than that. And I certainly notice a difference when I take it right away with the Mind Fuel. I really, within 30 minutes or so of shooting the Mind Fuel down my gullet, I am noticing things are just a little more dialed in, which is really good for the type of brain that I have got, which is seeing squirrels on a regular basis. Now, if you're wondering what you can stack it with, you can stack it with other mushrooms. That's very common. The reason I've got cordyceps in Mind Fuel in this formula, along with Suma and Gotu-Kola, is Gotu-Kola supports blood flow through the capillaries, just getting more blood and oxygen where it needs to be. So it's a traditional Chinese tonic for the brain as well. Suma, my favorite adaptogen for energy, is in there because, well, I just absolutely love Suma. It's why it's the major player in my Ultimate Vitality Multi, and you'll see it in others of my formulas as well, even though it's not that well known out there. It's a big herb for me. And then cordyceps, which is oxygenating at the cellular level. So you've got more blood flowing, more oxygen in that blood. You've got the lion's mane benefit for what it's doing for the nervous system. And then you also have got Suma to help with the energy. You can also stack that with magnesium threonate, which you probably know I take on a regular basis, along with magnesium glycinate, which of course both also support the nerves and the neurons and all that kind of stuff. A lot of people will also take it with things like Bacopa. We have a lot of people here at Vitality Nutrition that take it with our most popular brain formula, which is NeuroQ from Life Seasons. And the NeuroQ along with the Mind Fuel, or the NeuroQ along with lion's mane, is a really popular combination as well. And another thing that a lot of people love, and that I personally love, and that I take on a regular basis, is methylene blue, specifically if focus, not so much memory. I'm not going to say people haven't noticed memory benefits with it, but a lot of people have noticed focus benefits with methylene blue. And I find taking methylene blue on a daily basis with the magnesium daily and the lion's mane is a really good kind of 1, 2, 3 punch for me. All right. So that, I think, does get us where we need to be when it comes to lion's mane. I don't think I left anything out, but of course, if you have questions, call us 801-292-6662. That's 801-292-6662. If you want to try lion's mane and you're not sure where to start, I hope this show helped. I know I didn't dial in specifically. You know the ones I use, the powder, the brain and body formula. Sometimes if I want something that's got a flavor to it, I actually have that at home. I have lion's mane powder at home, and I have Mind Fuel at home and here at work. But the ones that I use the most are just the straight lion's mane powder and the Mind Fuel. But that doesn't mean that's going to be what's best for you. So experiment with it. It's very, very safe. It's very, very mild in terms, nobody experiences side effects with lion's mane that I've ever heard of. And so you can play with it freely. You can adjust the dose, but give it a little bit of time, a month or 2, 3 months, and really commit to it to see if it's doing what you want it to do. I hope this series is helpful for you. If you've had questions about all of these mushrooms, they get a little confusing. We're going to have cordyceps coming up. We're going to have reishi coming up. We're going to have one that everybody should know about that most people don't, called chaga, that I absolutely love, coming up as well. We'll keep doing these episodes about every month or 2 to give you more information on the magical world of medicinal mushrooms. And I'm not talking about magic mushrooms, but you know what I'm talking about. And if you have questions, call us 801-292-6662. Visit us online, vitalitynutrition.com, or at our South Ogden location, or in Bountiful, our original store. We just celebrate 49 years in August of 2026. We're going to be 50 years old next August. That's amazing. And I owe that to you, people who pay attention to this show, pay attention to our store, and support us. Thank you so much for listening to me. My name's Jared St. Clair, and this has been Vitality Radio. Thanks for listening to the Vitality Radio Podcast. If this episode helped you, follow the show, share it with someone, and explore trusted education and resources at vitalitynutrition.com. See you next time.
Hello, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Vitality Radio. Just a reminder that this podcast is for educational purposes only. This podcast has not been evaluated by the FDA. This podcast is provided with the understanding that the information shared is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. This podcast is not a substitute for professional care by a medical professional. Thank you.